My name is Samuel Kochomai, and today we are talking about psychology in mass communication, and the unit code of this particular unit is BJL2205. And the unit is largely, revolves around media and media influence on individuals and society at all. So just to give you an overview, today we are looking at the media portrayal of groups, but where is that located within our lectures this semester? We have already done introduction to psychology, then group dynamics, and today we are looking at media portrayal of groups. So in our discussion today, we'll look at portrayal of various groups. First we'll look at the genders or sexes, male and female, then older adults, then people with disabilities, then people with psychological disorders or mentally ill people, and then police officers, farmers in rural life, and finally we look at college students. Ideally, we're looking at how the media portrays this group. And we are asking ourselves that question because we know media cultivates particular perceptions, attitudes, and beliefs. And those attitudes significantly alter the way people view and treat the various groups. Just to give a background, we're saying that at least there's agreement among scholars that mass media have effects on its audience. That's important to note. Secondly, in a previous unit, which you must have done because it precedes this one, is that in the models and theories of mass communication, you encountered various theories, all of which talk about how people relate or affect and are affected by the media. And so some of these theories gave power to the audience, others largely gave power to the media. That media is the one that changes the people. The others talk about people are the one who choose what they want to obtain from the media. So that's some of the things that we should remember as we move on. So on that, we are saying that research has established that media portrayal of various groups in society leads to audience development of attitudes and beliefs of such groups. And we'll note later on how various, what the effect of various portrayal on how members of society treat particular groups. And so, like I mentioned earlier, we'll look at these portrayal of the following groups: women, men, college students, people with disabilities, people in old age, other groups, and of course the attendant effect. Let's begin with portrayal of women. First of all, we know all over the world that women, in population, women are usually more than men. But look, in one study by those individuals, that is Harris and Sanborn, that study found that there are fewer females than males portrayed in the media entirely. And they made this observation. If you look at primetime dramas and children's shows, there are twice as many men compared to women. When you come to commercials, voiceovers are 83 to 90% males. If you come to children cartoon characters, male characters are 3 times the number of female characters in it. You come to videos, music videos, there are twice as many males compared to females. You come to photographs, especially in newspaper. Men always outnumber women in those photos, except where you have a lifestyle section. That's the only place you'll find women being more. Then you come to radio. Who work in the radio? Disc jockeys or DJs, news anchors and reporters, musicians, voice-over announcers and so forth are still overwhelmingly women. That's the study by Harris and Sanborn. Then you come to interview guests. Now, this is not Kenya. The finding was in the US. One study in the US found that only 10% of interview guests were women. In other words, we are saying, in terms of proportion of numbers of women in this representation, they are always fewer, except where lifestyle, magazines or newspaper or shows come in. So that is one way we can look at how women are portrayed in the media. They are fewer. That's if you look at the numbers. Then you come and look at the physical appearance. Look at the physical appearance, but if you look at the physical appearance, you will notice that women are portrayed as useful beauties whose duty is to stay young and attractive to please their men. Just watch the soaps, watch those programs, you will see that. And older women are ridiculed. The presentation shows some kind of ridicule. So what is it that this is communicating? What is the underlying message that this particular portrayal suggests? It suggests that wrinkles, gray hair, or mature figures are to be avoided at all costs. Okay? Still on appearance, women in TV ads are younger than men. If you look at, men in ads or advertisement and women are always younger in those advertisements. And this is largely, I don't know whether this is in Kenya. I've not found any particular study, but I know the beauty, the beauty models that are presented in Kenyan shows and so forth are commonly the American and the Western beauty dimension. So the idealized portrayal of a feminine beauty in advertising is being observed as an unusual body type, which is very tall, very thin, small-hipped, and large breasts. That's the American type of beauty. But these particular dimensions, or all these qualities, only are found in 5% of the adult females. So it is very rare body type. And they say most models are usually of this particular body type. And that's by Harris, 2004. So on appearance, women are presented as young, older women are ridiculed. In advertising or advertisement, women are always younger than the men in the same advertisements. And then this body type, the idealized body type for beauty, is one that is unusually only found in 5% of adult males in that society. Then number 3, breastfeeding. How is breastfeeding portrayed in the media? How is breastfeeding portrayed in the media? Breasts are presented sexual organs Okay? And this observation has been made that even in the context where they are supposed to show how to, breastfeed a kid, that the people who develop these pictures or these images bring out very revealing, poses, so that almost the entire breast is out. Here, that you can only nurse with, a small bit of the breast, not the whole of it, and so that's how they observe it, as they are used as sexual organs. Then we come to concerns of women. How does the media portray what women are concerned about? One, they are portrayed more as homemakers, and the following has been downplayed: their businesses, their professions, their community roles. All those are downplayed or not even, represented at all, but they are disproportionately portrayed as homemakers and mothers. Number two, so that's one, portrayed as homemakers. Number two, they are often presented or portrayed as dependent on men and needing their protection. The insecurity, they need men's protection, so they are presented as such. The other portrayal is that on matters decision making, women are not presented in a way that they are seen to be making important decisions or engaging in important activities as often as men. In other words, they engage in activities, important activities, but not as often as men. In advertising, women are portrayed as terribly perplexed and obsessed about simple matters such as dirty laundry and so forth, utensils, So you can see that particular portrayal and what that means. The other portrayal, that if you look at cartoons, newspaper cartoons tend to show traditional women primarily preoccupied with trivial issues, not important issues. And then if you go to children TV shows, females most commonly are portrayed as just supporting characters, and they are shown doing much of this, nurturing and supporting their male colleagues instead of taking the lead. They are the nurturers, they are, and so if you look at what women are concerned about as portrayed by the media, so you can note that you see all these. And how do these feed into the attitudes that people have, the perception that people have, is what we are going to look at later on. There is a particular portrayal of a woman called the superwoman. Some scholars have called it a myth of a superwoman. And this portrayal is very common in TV series. And this is how this woman is portrayed. First of all, is employed outside home. She is a professional, most often in managerial roles, but may also be mother. So you can see employed outside home, professional, in managerial position, and also a mother. Now, what makes this woman super? Because she appears to manage the demands of both her career, being a wife, being a mother, effortlessly. and it has been observed that the great difficulty they experience balancing all those responsibilities are underplayed, because the thinking is it's very difficult to manage all these, your career, being a wife, being a parent, being a worship leader in a church, or being a chair of something, chair of a school, chair of a women guild or something like that. So it's very complex, but observation is that all those whatever have been downplayed, the difficulty in doing all this successfully. So the superwoman myth is also reinforced by advertising. And so this is, the superwoman is either realistic or largely unrealistic, because the balancing act of all those is actually very difficult. It's not that easy as portrayed by the media. So the next portrayal of women is on women and violence. That women are certainly linked with violence as victims of male violence. That is men that violate women in that respect. That's the popular portrayal. But there's also the observation that women are portrayed in a way that they use their sexual power to connive and manipulate and get their way in business and relations. So that's one of the portrayal that is not, I think, is very commonly found in content analysis that researchers have done. So that is portrayal of women, and we have 5 or 6 areas of portrayal. Let's look at men, how men are portrayed in the media. First, they are portrayed as emotionless beings. So they are presented always as calm, cool, self-confident, decisive, And in advertising, you see they usually have what they call vacant stare. They look at, open space, not looking at somebody or whatever. Sometimes on, wearing sunglasses, as opposed to women who appear to be looking at someone, and smiling or hinting their feelings, from the smile and whatever you can in the advertising. So men looking blankly into the sky or somewhere, there's nothing to look at. So that's why we're saying they've been portrayed as emotionless beings. Then we come to the physical appearance. We discussed physical appearance for women. Let's come to physical appearance for men. They are also just the way women are presented. They are portrayed as young and attractive. But the difference in their attractiveness is not hips, tallness, and whatever. It is their well-developed upper body muscles. The six-pack. The six-pack, the wide chest. That is what is idealized beauty for men. So, number 2 is that it is not quite as bad for a man to age. It's not quite as bad for a man to age as we saw with women. In fact, some little gray hair makes a man look distinguished and sexy. But for women, any gray hair in that portrayal would mean that it's a bad thing, it's getting old, out of fashion, and so forth. The message to be young is still as strong for men as it is for women. And this is one portrayal. Bald or bald character is usually portrayed as stupid, unfashionable, with unfashionable eccentricity. So he's a person who looks so any bald character, maybe next time you're watching a soap or a movie, just look at how a bald character is represented in that or portrayed in that. You might find that those particular qualities apply. And very important, research has found that men are becoming increasingly obsessed with their bodies and feeling increasingly inadequate relative to the models. Talk about six-packs, hair, height, and so forth. So they're equally obsessed with, this tendency. They want to be like models, and therefore you have people rushing to gyms to develop six-pack and so forth and so forth. So physical appearance, there's quite similarity between men and women in as far as how they stay young, and as well as aging, but it's not as bad for men as it is with women portrayal of aging. Our third portrayal of men was, or rather is, friendship. And there's a complete difference in the nature in which men's friendship and women's friendship are. And therefore, unlike women's friendship, which is, characterized by emotional intimacy, for men theirs is of lesser emotional intimacy. So that's the difference. They could do things that do not have that emotional intimacy as as we observe in women. And so that's the departure point between men's friendship and women's friendship. Let's come to the fourth portrayal, men and domestic roles. And on matters housework, men are portrayed as so inept that when they try, they always mess it up, and they will always need to be bailed out by their wives, who seem to know it better than them. On matters childcare, men are represented, or rather portrayed, as people who have no clue how to deal with little children, or small children for that matter. So the suggestion therefore is that you cannot leave men with your children. They will mess them up, they will, So that is the other, portrayal in as far as domestic roles are concerned. The other one is that men are portrayed as insensitive and rough, especially interpersonally when dealing with small children, because it's presented as if they don't know how to talk to their little children about sensitive personal issues. In some, it just suggests that men are so, unable to deal with domestic roles, housework, household issues, and so forth, including dealing with small children. So that's the fifth portrayal of men. Now let's look at, this portrayal and what it communicates and what effect it has had on the people who have consumed that kind of content. Number one, it has shaped, people's perceived reality. What are these perceived realities? Like women, because the media portrays men are dominant and so forth, so women will expect men to dominate them. And because men have also learned from the media that women presented as submissive, they expect women to be submissive. So those expectations, those perceptions, those perceived reality are a result of media portrayal of men and women. Secondly, portrayal of gender acts as cue to behavior, indicating to individuals, whether male or female, that this is how you should behave. Like if we pick the idea of superwoman, a person who is perfect, she can run her, managerial work, she is a wife, so she has a wonderful relationship with the husband, she has children, and she balances all this perfectly. So you can imagine a professional woman who cannot see herself in a superwoman or whatever. She tries to balance all these things, but they don't work. Because, of course, the reality of the matter is that it's not it's not quite practical, that it happens the way we view it in the media. So portrayal of gender acts as a cue to behavior. So, for example, if a woman wanted to become work and operate like a superwoman, obviously she will feel along the way that she has become, she's not reaching that path, and therefore begins to blame herself for not being a woman enough. Then on children who are heavy viewers of television hold more traditionally gender role attitudes. That particular divide of, males and females. So children who watch heavy viewers think more traditionally because of the feeding of the media content. The other effect is on the bodies, the perception about their bodies, girls, adolescent girls and their bodies. And one study found that, girls who are exposed to TV with conspicuously fat female characters were more likely to exhibit symptoms of eating disorders. By observing these, fat female, and the portrayal of a beauty is slender and so forth. So every time these small girls eat this food, then they feel like they are getting fat. And so they develop those disorders like anorexia and those other conditions. The other effect of this gender stereotyping through portrayal of the media is that less traditional men and women are more sensitive to and more critical of stereotypic portrayals of men in TV commercials, in contrast to more traditional media. Less traditional men and women are more sensitive. In other words, you are consumer of all these things, you're more concerned about beauty as presented by media and so forth, unlike, more traditional people who have, view reality as it is and so forth. Then dieting and non-dieting women, how do this portrayal affect them? Dieting women may react differently to thin media images than non-dieting women. So dieting women will react in a way of trying to find out why they are not fitting you know, those stereotypical images. But non-dietetic women do not care about those particular images. Men and violence. Men who are prone, we talk about poor consume this content. I mean, portrayal. I mean, this is content on portrayals. Men who are more prone to use violence are affected more by sexually violent media. In other words, those are people who may have watched sexually violent media like rape and torture and of women. The other effect is not effect, but what is the intervention, given that all these effects alter the true reality of gender? In the light of you know, media content in families and so forth, what should happen? As an intervention, parental discussion and mediation can lessen the negative effects of media body image stereotyping. In other words, parents are encouraged, when they are with their small kids, they should be holding discussion about this, answering questions, educating them about the reality or the lack of reality of the images they view. So that is effects of gender stereotyping to males as well as females. So that was our discussion on you know, portrayal of men and women. Let's come to portrayal of older adults. Older adults are people who are 65 years and above. And this is what the media, how the media has represented them. They are underrepresented demographic in the media. The proportion of older people vis-a-vis their quota in the media representation is not close to each other, it's not similar. So they are underrepresented. And how are they represented? They are shown as having physical, mental weakness, as well as poor health. And when they, and when they are portrayed as healthy, they are quite healthy, and realistically so healthy that given the age, it doesn't look realistic. So that is how old people are represented. And the sick, when a portrayal of a sick old person is made, then that particular sick person is badly ailing, infirm, feeble, and sometimes senile. All the worst characteristics of an aged person. So that's how they are portrayed. And they say a newspaper is the best medium, or rather a most friendly medium in covering older people. And so that's how, in short, older adults or old people, 65 and above, are portrayed across the media types in society. So that's how they are portrayed. The next group, so newspapers cover elderly more than any other media. I think I say that. The other representation of older people is that they are crotchety and complaining. They are represented as narrow-minded. They are represented as perpetually complaining, object of scorn, and so forth. What they complain about are quite trivial, as presented portrayed by the media. And so the other portrayal is that they are they have stereotyped positions and activities. They are shown where they sit and how they sit, what they do, and they are shown as engaging in trivial things like playing cards or whatever it is, whatever they play those, and they sit in some rocking chairs or sit certain position every day, and so that is also how they are portrayed. And they are portrayed as physically unattractive. How do they show that? They show it with how they dress. They also show it how their posture, stoop-shouldered. They also show it on attractiveness. They have, for males, mousy haired. They don't shave, they don't do what. They're also shown in that unattractiveness as badly wrinkled. So the face is badly wrinkled. And I say the clothing is old-fashioned. And so that's how physically unattractive they are depicted. In commercials, they are presented as young old with some, not a lot of gray hair, but some gray hair. So you can see all these are more like negative, all these are negative, negative representations or portrayals of older people. But there is positive portrayal sometimes. And when it comes to positive portrayals, it all restricted to range of context within the family, as grandparents who give kids long stories of their own, perhaps play with them, tell them stories, help them with this and that. So that's the only position. But the most dominant presentation is that they act also as antagonists in relationships with their adult child. They seem to work like, antagonizing their son or their daughter most of the time. So when they're portrayed positively, it's within family context, and they also work in against or in antagonism with their adult child, whether that is a son or a daughter. So that's how older adults are portrayed. That's how old adults are portrayed. When we come to portrayal of persons with disabilities, then first of all, like we said earlier, they seem to be underrepresented. Like we said in other groups, they seem to be underrepresented because the numbers in the population are not proportional to those in the portrayals. Like this, an observation made by one scholar that in the US, for example, people with disability in TV series are less than 1%, yet people with disabilities population is 10 to 20%. So you can see the difference in the proportion. In reality, 20. In portrayal, 1%. Now, there are two, on matters physical disability, there are two representations of physical disability. The first one is a beta creep. I think drawn from the word cripple, a beta creep. And the second one is a super creep. Now, sometimes it can be on a sequence starting with beta creep and ending up as a super creep. So what are these two portrayals? A bitter creep is that person with physical disability who is so bitter and depressed because of the disability. On the other hand, the super creep is that person with disability, physical disability rather, but comes out as a superhuman and selfless paraplegic. Okay, so you can see that there are two. But sometimes they can be in a continuum, starts as a bitter creep and then end up at as a super creep. So that's important. But the most important thing why we have these two in this representation or portrayal is that the key message that needs to get to the people with physical disability is that attitude is all they need. That the right attitude is all that matters. Okay? It's not about a physical disability or whatever, but all that matters is attitude. If you take life positively, then your adjustment will be positive attitude is instrumental to your adjustment. Accept the situation and then work within what you have in that particular situation. So, like I said, underlying message of both of these portrayals is that individual adjustment is instrumental to disabled people's life. In other words, with the right attitude, they will be fine. A few years ago, there was somebody called Zach who wanted to wheel all the way to South Africa and back, or from South Africa through Namanga to Kenya, to raise funding for paraplegics. I think it was a doctor. That's a representation of a super creep. Somebody who has come out of this disability. I think he had an accident and so that is the core message that these representations attempt to address. So that's all for people with physical disability. Now let's come into people with psychological disorders. We talk about mental illness. And in the media, these are the representation. One is that they are presented as dangerous. Dangerous in what sense? As having injured or killed someone. Also as victims of violence. So they perpetuate violence. They also end up becoming victims of violence. Okay? But you see, that representation is not accurate, because about 11% of persons with disability, or rather not disability but with psychological disorders, are prone to violence. So say 89% are fine. They can't hurt anybody. They don't engage in violence. Okay? But there's a prominent representation or portrayal of one type of persons with psychological disorders, the one called psychopaths. And the representation of psychopaths is so much overrepresented. There aren't as many psychopaths as they are often represented in the media. Okay, so one is that they are dangerous. They are dangerous in that sense of psychopaths. And then the second portrayal is that of that the people with psychological disorders are presented as objects of humor or ridicule. They do things that are outrageous. They do things that are funny. Okay, so That's how they are presented. Number 3, which is observed as a dangerous portrayal, is that they are portrayed as a breed apart. In other words, they are so different from the rest of us. And what makes this difference? They have wild hair. Okay, they have wild hair. So that, you know, is one of the differences. Is not like one of us. Number 2, they have disheveled clothing. You know, the kind of clothing they wear, you know, depict how different they are from us. They have bizarre behavior, like, you know, collecting all manner of things, you know, trash and so forth. That is also one way of showing how breed apart they are when you bring us into that fold. And then odd facial expressions is one other way of depicting how different they are from normal citizens. But this representation is considered, you know, inaccurate, because it perpetuates 2 inaccurate beliefs. One, that mental illness is immediately identifiable, noticeable. You know, that it can be identifiable by the way you look, or the way you dress, or the way your hair looks like, you know, your clothing, your bizarre behavior. So that is one inaccurate belief that it perpetuates. Number 2, that people with an unusual appearance are objects of suspicion and perhaps fear. Remember, when you present someone as, you know, unusual, different, then you have to be suspicious, you have to be very careful, you know, and that the care there becomes careful being the fear. Now, what is the effect of this portrayal? Stigmatization of mental illness. And the outcome of that stigmatization is that those who have those mental illnesses may not disclose them. So that means they will suffer in silence. And that's not a good thing. Secondly, it discourages people from seeking much needed mental treatment or psychological treatment. So the portrayal of people with psychological disorders as a breed apart is not good at all, because it has this fundamental impact in the way people make choices in as far as seeking medication or declaring their status of mental illness. So that's people with psychological disorders. Police officers. Now, police officers, we looked at the various other groups earlier, and we noticed that the various other groups were underrepresented. We are encountering for the first time a group that is overrepresented, and the police are overrepresented in media, especially television. But and because they are overrepresented, and because television is the most common space where many citizens encounter the police, so what happens to the way they view reality, therefore, is that police are as many. And therefore they overestimate the number of police if, they think there are many because they are overrepresented in the media. So larger percentage of people's knowledge, of course, of police comes from television. So real police officers and trainees see TV police shows as unrealistic portrayal of their profession. Like I said, so what is the effect of this overrepresentation? Obviously, overestimation of number of police, and even the audience knowledge about the police and how they work, how they react, how they manage issues. So if police are represented as people who have who do not listen, who do not care, that's what the public will get. So that's how police are represented on TV. First of all, they are more to that's how the public know them and what they do on that particular setting of TV portrayal. Then let's go to farmers and rural life. Media portrayals of farmers has some of these, not really good portrayals. But first and foremost, they are underrepresented in the media. Farmers, rural life are underrepresented. In Kenya, they say, for example, that the rural population is 70% and the urban is 30%. And so you can see, and I think in other societies, it's not far away from that. Two, media have dominantly represented rural people as uneducated, stupid, lacking in worldly experience, and lacking common sense. That's the rural populations. But sometimes they are occasionally represented or portrayed as, on the other extreme, that rural areas are a refuge for those who are wealthy, who have luxury homes. The people involved in producing media, to understand why they do this, is that most of them are urban bred and urban born. So they have no much contact with the rural area. The next portrayal is of college students. And the portrayal of college students usually centers on how they spend their time. And this is commonly what is portrayed in the media as far as college students are concerned. Their common portrayals include drinking lots of beer, having fun, partying and partying and partying, even into the wee hours of the morning. And their wildly excessive and destructive behaviors are presented usually in a comic way, in a normal way. So like, it's a very interesting way to see how students behave. Now, unfortunately, some of the other aspects of student life are downplayed, which includes, the fees, struggle to paying fees, studying, being in the co-curricular activities like sports, drama, and other talents. All those are usually downplayed. And so this negative representation of students has an effect on how members of society are going to treat the students. And I want to share this, that in one US town, students found it difficult to get some work during their holiday. Why? Because they would be constantly partying, because that's how members of that community thought. So this representation students present them as negative, especially to those who have never been to college and those who have not lived close to colleges where they can interact with students. So as we close, we have observed that portrayal of various groups has effect on how members of the public perceive and react to those particular groups. Thank you very much.